Welcome to the Planner Pals podcast, a podcast hosted by two true Planner Pals. I'm Jess, or Jessie Corinne.
And my name is Mark, and I go by Mark Your Pages. And I'm so excited for today's episode, Jess, because we are covering part 2 of Go Wild. Last episode, we focused a lot on the volunteers and the community of Go Wild. But this time, we're going to talk about the sessions. We have all of the interviews that you did, which were absolutely spot on, so much better than I did, for sure, as well as our takes on the topics and some of the big takeaways from each of the sessions.
Before we get into that though, thank you to everybody who left a comment on our last episode. It was really cool to hear your thoughts about either Go Wild if you attended or what would kind of like incentivize you to attend. It was really good to have some back and forth about that because we have people who definitely want to come and it just isn't viable, people who definitely want to go again, and for people that just like, nope, I am fully introverted. That does not sound like my cup of tea.
Which I found to be so interesting because the whole episode, people were sharing how they are introverts and how Go Wild really helped them kind of come out of that box. And then to see some of the comments being like, I could never do that. I'm like, you're actually the prime person for it because these are your people. If you're going to ever feel more comfortable around somebody, it's talking about pens and notebooks and planners. But to each their own. I completely respect everyone's individual opinion.
Yeah, no, I in particular like the comment saying like, oh God, there's too many people. I'd have to tap out by 12. I'm like, well, that's kind of perfect because most of the sessions finish by like 2. So if you can hold out for just like 2 extra hours, we'd love to see you there.
So let's go ahead and kick into day 1. It's a great place to start. Even though it's early in the morning, getting in early is definitely key. You have kind of the big thing, which is choosing your table. We talked about that last time, finding the right one for you. And once you get in there and you're so overly excited about all the stickers and stationery you have at your desk, it's time to pay attention. Look up at the big screen as we talk about the very first session, which was Life in Seasons, which was very interesting because I've never thought about planning in seasons. And I think what Heather Kell of Kell of a Plan talked about was pretty awesome.
In terms of your session, now obviously all of the fine folks here got to see it, but for anybody who wasn't watching, what would have been like one takeaway that you would have wanted them to get from it?
Probably that you just do what you have to do to make your planner work for you no matter what season you're in, whether that's changing to a new planner or just changing how you use your current planner. Just make your planner work for you.
I just wanted to know, in terms of like being a speaker, what made you say yes to the opportunity?
So I've been going to Go Wild since 2018. And back then I was just like a regular planner with a regular account. And then through the years I've grown to this business. But I feel like through the whole everything that I've gone through, Go Wild has always been a constant, and they've always been very supportive of Kell of a Plan. And so when I had the chance to be on their stage, I was just like, yes, because I feel like my story can kind of resonate with people out there. Like, I was just a regular person like you at my first Go Wild, and now I've got this business. And so I was just like, yes, let's do it.
Yeah, no, having just seen your session and when you said like, I used to be a teacher, I'm like, oh, I did that too.
Yeah.
So that was really special for me, like kind of being able to see somebody else who's kind of not necessarily the same journey, but like a similar one.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
It was so interesting to listen both to her story and really talk about like from a business perspective, how she's come up. I think with so many people who are interested in starting a business and going through that, it was awesome to kind of go through the flow with her. So when she connected that to the different seasons and like summer being the busy season and winter being a bit slower and thinking about that, it was really cool. And I saw a lot of people too, Jess, I don't know if you heard them, but they were referring to, this is my summer season or this is my blah, 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 which nothing against Taylor Swift and the Eras tour, but I was very happy for people to get over their blah, blah, blah era.
I agree. I actually just like don't like the word era now. So I loved that we had like the bag that said, I'm in my wild chapter. I'm like, yes, I'm all about it. I love the idea of planning in seasons. Seasons is a term that like resonates with me, I guess. Eras gives me the ick. Like I can't. Like, sorry, Taylor, you're doing great, but not that word, please.
I love the freedom that it gives people for sure. Like if you're just like, owning kind of what's happening at that moment in time, I think that's great. But yeah, talking about like planning in seasons and really kind of understanding where you are, planning for that time of the year or that time of the month or that time of wherever you are, that could be like very chaotic. And it's okay to say like, okay, I'm busy. I can only plan so much this way. Or, hey, I have a little bit more time, so let me explore a little bit more. Something about that session really did kind of stick with me, which I thought like, yeah, accept kind of where you are in the place and time and just kind of work with what you have. At least that's what I took away from it.
Yeah, I liked the way that she broke down what each kind of season looks like. Because obviously, if we're thinking kind of calendar seasons, like we know when autumn is, we know when spring is, all of those kind of things. But the idea that you can have a winter season or whatnot, if we're thinking about it in the way she described, that lasts a full year, or a spring season that goes for 2 years or whatever else. And I really liked her take on kind of putting them into those different buckets so that you can kind of analyze what your plan and needs are going to be based on which of those seasons you're in.
And then right after that session, we moved into our first panel, which was a founders panel. And last episode, we heard Jasmine talk about the focus on small businesses and things like that. And this panel was exactly that. Other people who've really grown their business and done big and cool things with it. And it was really awesome to hear their perspectives on what was important to them.
So we just got to hear from the founders panel, a very inspiring bunch of fabulous business owners. So I just wanted to check in with, we've got Joe, Myra, Tori, Tisa, and Callie. In terms of, for people who didn't get to see your presentation, because you guys hit on a lot of really awesome points, what would be one thing that you'd want our planner pals to hear as a takeaway from your session?
I hope that they feel inspired and just know that this genuinely was just a real talk. We're all just in the same shoes, I feel like. I mean, we're all in different stages with businesses, but at the end of the day, we're all human and we're all here to support each other. So community is key.
I say don't be afraid to dream big and just go for what you want to do, creative or not creative.
As long as you keep showing up, things are going to continue to work out for you. No matter any of your failures, if you do something wrong, things don't work out, in the end, it always will.
I think for me, it's important for people to know that you have to take risks and get uncomfortable and put yourself out there and do the things alone. If you can take a buddy, but it's really important that you take risks for these opportunities to present themselves and for people to get to know you and your story and know that, you know, you're just another normal person. And if this was possible for you, it's possible for anyone.
You only have one life, right? So don't spend your whole life doing something that doesn't make you happy. So if you need to change gears and do something else, don't be afraid to take the leap, because in the end, you want to have a happy life.
I wanted to ask you guys, why did you say yes to being part of that founders panel? Like, what was behind it? And you're like, oh, I really need to be part of Go Wild this year.
I think it's so important to connect with other creatives, and you know, you can bounce ideas off each other. You can just, you know, wear the crazy bracelets together and just have so much fun being around other creative people. That's my favorite part of it all.
I think for me, I really wanted to represent all my Latina and Hispanic culture. So for me, it was really important to have someone like me up there as well. So, and also I love to chit chat and for people to just get to know my story as well, because it's, you know, crazy what can happen when you believe in yourself. So that's why I said yes.
These are my people. So it was a no-brainer for me. I love to be able to support and give back and give information and whatever I can to the community. Like, these are my people. I'm here every time.
Well, in this panel, like, I think we've all like worked together or traveled or something. So it was great to like just be with, you know, people that you have worked with. But also, this is my third Go Wild, and my first Go Wild, it was a goal to be on stage in some capacity. So
I love that. So last year I actually was on the founders panel, and this year I got to be the moderator. So I'm still like in shock by it. I don't know. I had a blast, and this group is just, it was a blessing to say the least.
It's so inspiring to hear from people like yourselves, because as someone who has, like, you know, been able to quit their full-time job, I was also a teacher, because I know we've had a lot of teachers today for it. But being able to hear you guys' story and, like, you know, building your self-belief and all of that has just been really awesome. I know that a lot of the people out there just, like, needed that message too.
As mentioned, it was really cool to hear from them. And I think one of the nicest parts about these panels is that it gives you an opportunity to see more people at once. Like, obviously, because they're sitting as part of a panel, but it's like, I didn't know about Joe. I didn't know about Myra before they got up on stage and presented to us and such. So it was really cool to have people who I hadn't seen before highlighted in that way.
Yeah, something big for me was really as they were telling their stories and talking about the support of their family and their community and like how important that's been for them. It was just one of those things that was just a little, you know, you had emotion up on stage a little bit as you were going through with people sharing their stories of saying like, I didn't come from much, or I came from a bad situation or bad relationship and I overcame that. I had the support of my family, or I did not have the support of my family, especially in like the creative space. I think a lot of people kind of get this. I don't know how your parents feel about you being a content creator versus a teacher as you were. I'll ask you that in just a second. But it was interesting to hear other people's perspectives on that too, to say like, yeah, my family doesn't really get what I do. Or they were like, oh, you're going to start your own business. Yeah, that's not going to be successful. And then them overcoming that and really finding their spot and doing amazing things.
Yeah, I think it was Myra's point about the idea of even if you do have the support at the end of the day, it is kind of you going it alone, but in a really empowering way though, not like a you are alone, it's you against the world kind of a thing, woe is you, but more so it's just like own the fact that you want to do something awesome, incredible and whatnot, and you do actually have all of the things in your toolkit, you just need to actually use them and exercise them to get the stuff done that you want to.
So on that topic, Jess, we talked about families accepting and not accepting. Like, do your parents have any thoughts on you moving into being a content creator full time? Do they understand it versus being a teacher, which I think is a lot more like straightforward and common?
I think that there's a bit of like a kind of like curiosity point around like how does one make money doing this type of a thing? But given I've been doing it for a while now, like we've had those conversations, they understand how it works. And at the end of the day, if I can pay my bills and if I'm happy, they're happy for me. I do have very supportive parents in that way. Even if they don't get it, they don't understand, they do trust in my ability to like make the right choices for my future. And I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, it's good to have that support. I think we kind of got that feeling as people were asking those questions, because other people come up against that too, especially if they want to move into a space that isn't kind of the norm, becoming a content creator or a small business owner that makes stickers. Like, that's just like, wait a second, what? Like, you're going to make money doing that? Okay. But to have that support, or even not to have it and still overcome that, I think is just what I took most away from that session. I think was really like overcoming that negativity and doing what you believe in, and then kind of basking in the success with other people who want to support you versus that don't.
I think that that's also a like empowering thing about spaces like Go Wild. Even if you don't have that support from your like immediate circle of friends or your family or whatnot, there are notably people who get it and they will support you if you don't have other people in your life who are going to support you in that way.
Yeah, counting on the community like Penable you, for instance, those are the people you need. If you need someone not to talk you out of a decision, you go to this community. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's definitely that way, isn't it? But our next session though was with Elise and Marielle, and they were sponsored by Zebra to be there, which means we of course got our Zebra goodies to go along with their session. And I loved that it was very functionally based, planning on paper.
So if there was like one takeaway that you could leave them with, what would have been the thing that you would have wanted them to get out of your session today?
When you are making a to-do list and you're trying to figure out how to fill the open slots in your day, ask yourself not only what do I have time for, what do I have the energy for, what do I have the mental headspace for, and will this most benefit me today or maybe future me?
And for me, it's really making your planner your own, because our planner is not just a productivity tool, it's a tool to tell a story of who we are. So it's really important to make sure that you're infusing that in. Again, love stickers, love all of the things, but putting pen to paper is really, what it's all about.
No, I think that that's a really, really good point. I fully agree. This idea of like being able to make it your own space, and it doesn't just have to be a productivity tool, but also that idea of like making time for the other areas of your life that aren't just like the hustle and like getting shit done. Right. I just wanted to ask you guys, in terms of being selected to be a speaker, being asked like did you want to take up the opportunity? What made you say yes? What made you want to be here with us and talk to us today?
So I love Zebra products, and when I had the opportunity to share with so many at Go Wild using my favorite products, how I time manage and manage my to-do list and take everything that's out of my brain and put it on paper, I know that others could find that helpful. They may just need that aha moment and someone to show them a quick tip or trick of to how it's done. So this was the dream opportunity to be on the stage at Go Wild and with one of my best friends and with our favorite brand. There was no question about whether or not we would do this.
Of course. Agreed. Zebra prints are my favorite, so I was really excited to do it. Of course, I was a little bit nervous, but I knew that being able to share something that I love and also the creativity behind it, because for me, again, if I'm not able to be creative, I'm not getting anything done. The ADD takes over. So the fact that I've even been planning this long is like insane, and it's all due to being able to really infuse fun and art into my planner.
I was a huge fan of the swag drop because I got the Sarasa R, which now I've been writing with all the time, even though I have so many other pens. But it was cool to see both how they plan it. I personally have been a fan of both of those. I've been following them online for a very, very long time. And to be able to kind of get a little peek inside of their planners, because they do things a little bit differently and some the same. You know, Elise really talked about time blocking and how she utilizes colors and color coding to accomplish those things, but it's different than like how I time block, which I found to be really interesting. And then I really did love how they used some of the new products from Zebra too. They had the dot markers and then the stamp markers, which we also got as a part of that. And it was neat to just start to see them incorporating that more because, you know, the dot markers are one thing. They're not new to anything. Like I think actually in your table gifts, you gave us dot markers, right? So like I said it just as table because I wanted to get her stickers and dot markers. But to have those and be like, oh, that's how I could use them for some decoration inside of my planning. Like it was close to heart for me because we talk a lot about the mix between like fun and functional and how you make that work. So it's also cool to get some of those fun ideas. And I just love those two also. They're really fantastic educators and content creators. They have a good time.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of sad to say that like my biggest takeaway from their session, outside of, you know, the things they already talked about though, the one that I really got was how to use the stamp marker, which was not really the point of the session, but I loved just having the little tip of like, you don't just go straight down, otherwise the ink won't actually get on the page properly. You need to kind of like curve it or roll it. And since doing that, I've been getting much more attractive looking star stamps as opposed to kind of like this weird half outline of a star. I'm interested to see what the other shapes are because do we all get a star? Did everybody get a star?
I got a star. I'm curious what they're going to look like too, because the stamp markers also are not new. Like Crayola has done them for a really long time, like smiley faces and like lightning bolts. It would be cool if they were a little bit more planner focused, like stars or like check marks or things along that line. Like that I would really love.
A check mark would actually be super bloody cool.
Right? Like it would be something. I don't know if you could do a circle motion with it. I mean, I guess you could do it with anything, but it'll, you know, time will tell what it looks like. And if they are planner focused, I will be very excited about it.
Yeah, straight up. I want to have a check mark. I want a little cross. I want one that's a circle that's not a filled in circle. I want it to be like an event symbol for the bullet journal kind of thing. I want one of those. I'm just putting my requests in. Zebra, I know you're not listening, but please.
They're listening. What are you talking about? They love us.
But the next session we had after that was I Know Your Favorite. So we're going to let Kathy introduce her session herself. But in terms of your takeaways, I think the best part was seeing you get up there and actually be part of the action. So obviously for the people who are watching, not everybody got to be here today to see your session. If you had any kind of like big takeaway that you would have liked them to get from your session, what would you like them to have been taken away from?
Okay, so my takeaway for people is to look at your stickers. We all have so many stickers, and just do a layout on a blank page or with the dots on it or even with lines, and just start placing stickers down. And as you put your stickers, journal on a page. Why did you choose that sticker? What did it remind you of? Something you did or someone you met? And then after you have your stickers down, go in with your favorite pens. I love glitter gel pens. And just start doing different contrasting patterns in contrasting colors in between each of the stickers, and it turns it into this beautiful art collage that tells your story. And you can even journal the different designs that you chose to doodle. Like, why did you choose plus signs? Why did you choose hearts? And where are they in proximity to the sticker that's next to it? What story does that say about you? Because our subconscious really emerges when we're just letting ourselves explore and play and create.
No, I love that. And especially as somebody who has like mad sticker anxiety, as I call it, and it's just like hold them like a dragon kind of thing.
Yes.
I love that balance between like the intentionality behind it,
Yes.
but then also letting yourself just like be free and creative and like actually use your stash.
Yes.
So, this is your second year speaking to us. So what made you decide to come back?
Oh my gosh, I did the first one last year on the panel, the founders panel. I just love the community of how documenting life is so meaningful to people, because it's not like scrapbooking. It's so different. Doing planning, it just is like really celebrating what we're doing every day in our life right now.
Well, I will go ahead and just go on a monologue rant, Jess. If you can go ahead and you want to go to the bathroom, get a water, maybe go for your daily walk, this would be your time. Now, something about this session specifically for me really did stand out. There's kind of like two big points that I took away from this. The first one definitely has to do with the idea of actually using your stickers. We talk about this so much in this community. We have the stickers, we don't use the stickers. We wait for a perfect time to do it. And just being able to like feel like I could just create art with it was fantastic. So laying down stickers that had some meaning to them, to me, and then using markers and other things like that to add to the excitement around it and tell a story essentially with stickers is not something that I've ever thought about before in my entire life.
I think my favorite part was that, she tells you, put them down on the page and, doodle around them and such and whatnot. And then she tells us the idea that, like, the bottom part of the page is your foundation and you hadn't put any there. I'm like, so Mark has no foundation. He is baseless.
She said I was open for new things and new ideas, Jess. Not that I didn't have a foundation. No. But it was exactly it. And what was so cool about it, too, is that the way that I thought about my page specifically was like a top down. It was this idea of literally, like, it was using elements that she provided with us too, just to kind of circle back on like how she usually does this is she has sessions where they do stamp carving. That was the other thing I was very excited about with this, is that she does workshops where you carve stamps, and my love of stamp carving and making and doing that. So it was like, oh, I love this. There's something very good here. But then utilizing that, the symbolism, and then her doing a very similar thing in that session with after you kind of create your page. She does essentially like a tarot card reading or like a lifeline reading, I felt like, and she was interpreting the page and she broke that down. Mine was definitely meant to be read top to bottom. So it was this idea of like seeing and talking to people and filling your cup with excitement. And then, more things to come and good things. And then when she read it backwards, it was like, you have no foundation. But the other thing that really stuck out to me is like this idea of like filling your cup, right? We talked about how this Go Wild as a whole was very cup filling for us in a very different way than last year. It was funny to hear her, well, not funny, like it was actually kind of serious to her to say like, oh, you're always talking and you're filling other people's cup. Maybe though you should, save some of that for yourself. And I was like, oh, I'm having a therapy moment here. Like this idea that, I was expressing my interest and my love of like talking and educating and being that creator. But for her to like kind of read that the other way and say like, maybe you should save a little bit for yourself. It was pretty damn cool.
I don't know where she gets off saying that you talk too much. That's ridiculous. This is a ridiculous mission.
The amount of times I have to cut out my rambling ons in this podcast, the world will never know.
Yeah, every episode is 3 hours long. Okay, it's not that bad, but still.
But it was a really fun time. And I talked a little bit about it last episode too, but then seeing her, something about her presence too. Every speaker is a little bit different. Everyone has their own like vibe and kind of what they're putting out there. And hers was just so happy and joyous. And just the way that she really approached creating, I thought was just really special. And every time I saw her, I was smiling. And every time I saw her, I was also complimenting her and telling her how amazing she was and how meaningful her session was to me.
No, I see what you mean about her vibe, because like she's a very warm spirit, I feel, and bold, but also very, very soft and soothing. And it's a very interesting juxtaposition. Like, crushing it, Kathy. Good on hitting all of the points there. But it was really cool to see how much that session resonated with you. I sat there, I was like, I know we're supposed to be using the stickers, but I absolutely refuse, because the sticker mentality of mine is, no, hoard it like a dragon. You can't possibly put this on a page because then you won't have it when you actually need it. I will eventually grow out of that, but I don't think I have enough sticker books yet. I've only got like 26. I need like 52 sticker books until I'll be okay with just putting a sticker down willy-nilly.
For me personally, I'm excited to explore that more, because I've been the same exact way. I'm like, well, I could use that for something else, or, oh, well, I don't want to do that. I was also thinking though, with all of the stamps that I have, that I could do something very similar. I'm so used to using them in a functional way, or adding a little bit of decoration to things, like maybe just taking a collection of those and putting them on a page and kind of building around it with kind of this idea of like a very pristine looking image with more free flowing doodles or lines or whatever. It's just something about that really inspired me to like try different things. We'll see what happens with it. I might explore it one day if I have extra time. When I'm in my winter season and I have more time on my hands, I will most certainly be sticker journaling.
Look at you with your crossover skills. I can't remember what the teacher term for that is because I've been out of the classroom too long. Excellent job. job.
The next session after that was one called Good on Paper. And this one was hosted by Danielle, or known online as Oh Happy Danny. And this was such a cool one for a lot of different reasons. We'll let her explain what she was trying to get across to everybody.
So for anybody who didn't get to come and see you present, what would have been your takeaway? What would you have wanted them to get out of your presentation?
Yes. Well, I would say find your thing and do it well. That was probably the closing statement that I think resonates a lot, because your thing is unique to you, whether it's your passion for planning or even things that you are passionate about in terms of creating and being artsy or planning or information, whatever you're good at, do that thing well. And by well, I mean with your whole heart, bringing your whole self to the table and recognizing that there are issues in the world that need your advocacy, and you're the perfect person to do it.
So what made you decide to come and speak to us this year?
Yeah, so honestly, I've never been to Go Wild before, but seeing online, the energy is incredible. And it seemed like it's a group of really passionate people. And that's my ideal audience. I really love to talk to people who are passionate about something, because chances are they're also passionate about things that they don't talk about here. And so the goal for my talk was to say, hey, you could take this passion for artwork, for planning, for stickers and stationery, and you can apply it to doing good in the world. I try to do that every day with my art and my stationery shop, but also in the mundane everyday, it's still a beautiful opportunity to make a difference.
Yeah, and I love how obviously you showed us what your kind of like passion is and how you're using it and like what you're fighting for in terms of like your like, I don't know, your one-line slogan of like, you know,
right,
this is what I'm good at, this is who I want to fight for, and this is what I want to do with that.
Right.
And I'm getting to bring that to people who don't feel like they have those kind of like a unique skill or talent and such. And it's like, no, you are an individual and you can do this too.
Right.
I think that the idea of just being able to use your creativity in such a powerful way was just like, it really resonated with me. And it kind of got me thinking about like, you know, given we have these platforms, we've got the podcast and we've got our separate channels and Instagram and yada, yada, all the things, like how are we using that to kind of fight? And I don't mean fight like fisticuffs, but like, you know, promote and kind of highlight the things that are important to us and that are going to be important for the world. I thought that was really cool. Also, I just love the term good on paper, because I have found myself using that multiple times since I returned home from Go Wild. I was talking to Vogel about, I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, I don't know, that just sounds like it's good on paper. And of course, he wasn't there. He wasn't at the session. So he's like, yeah, I guess it was. Of course, he doesn't understand all of the kind of like background insight that we got from the session. But I'm like, I'm gonna use that more.
I really liked it too. And the part about activism, I like that she kind of opened it up to anything, because so often we think about like social activism or race activism, right? Or something that is kind of wronged and then you standing up against that. But I like that she even said that you can use it for whatever you're passionate about. And she used that example of, if you're passionate about foster care for animals, use your art to be an activist for that space. And I think that was like, it really kind of like closes that barrier to entry, right? Or the lower barrier to entry. Because if you're like, well, I don't know how to be an activist for like this big topic, especially if it has to do with like social, political, religious, you can also involve that in other different ways. And that kind of opened it up. If you're a little nervous about it, which I'll be honest with you, like I do get a little bit nervous about that and sharing like too much, because I'm like, well, this is a planner space, you know, for me personally, right? I think it's different for everyone. So I try not to infuse religion or politics or kind of those other things into what I'm doing. It's just not my space. But if it's something that you are really passionate about, and I've seen a lot of creators, especially recently with, you know, the recent elections this year in the US, on kind of their thoughts on those things, you know, using your platform, like you said, to do that. I love the hand letter artists that I follow, or the other creators that are using their art to get across a message. And I think that's a really valid way to do things, and something that everyone is kind of open for. But she never made me feel like I had to do it, or if I wasn't using my art for that, that I wasn't doing something. She had such a positive nature about her, which I think was awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's also really important. Like, if you're thinking about trying to win people over to your side in any kind of argument or anything that you're fighting for, making sure that you're not coming in with a you're wrong, this is the only right way kind of mentality. It's not going to win any favors. Like, nobody's going to be like, oh, you know what? You have a point. They're going to dig in and be like, no, stuff you, get off my lawn or whatever. So it was really nice to have that very kind of like positive focus to it, even though it is a topic that can feel quite heavy. And I always get worried with those kind of topics, kind of like you said, like, oh, how much of that do we want to share on the channel and stuff? And it's like, how much of myself do I want to share in that way? But I also liked the fact that you can pick these things that you're passionate about and pick these things that you want to fight for, but like stay in your lane. I feel like stay in your lane came up a couple of times, and which always, like, when I think stay in your lane, it's never a positive thing, but people seem to pitch it as a positive thing during the Go Wild session. So if we're thinking about staying in our lane, thinking about something we want to fight for in that space, I guess the thing that I would, quote, fight for is the idea that like creativity and productivity are not opposites. You can have both. And that's something that like I will fight for in my content. It's not necessarily well, I guess you could say it could be a world-changing issue, just not as world-changing as other issues, question mark.
No, it's something, if you're passionate about it and you want to talk about it more, you can. And that's a really important thing that you just said there, right? It's like, that's something that you are interested in and that you feel like you can take a stand on, and you can do that. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be anything that you're not comfortable with or sharing. Like you said, some of that stuff you do like to keep to yourself. I think you and I talk often about being like an open book, and we share a lot online about our families and our work and things like that. But like, we don't have to share all of it, and we don't always need to. And it's all about what you feel comfortable with. Like, I'm not going to ask a random person that messages me to tell me about their background and their life and other things like that they're not comfortable with. But the things I am passionate about, especially around like inclusivity and making other people feel comfortable, I've talked about it, from myself as being a guy in a pretty, more feminine kind of space. And again, I even use that lightly because it's not 100% that way, but being, a person that can be representative of a niche part of this planner community. I mean, how many guys did we see at Go Wild this year, Jess? Like 4 or 5, maybe?
Yeah, well, okay, like off the top of my head, I know we had Damien, we had Matt, we had Ryan, we had, previous years we've had Chris, and he's bought the pencil cases that look like peanuts, and he wasn't there this year, and I missed him. I want another peanut. No, that's not the point, but it's still relevant.
Yeah, so 4 or 5, people. There was others too that I saw. So it's just one of those things where it's like, it's awesome to kind of see that. It's not that I feel like I need to be an activist for the men in the planner community. Like, that's not necessarily it, but it's awesome to see some of that representation. It's awesome to try to get guys to feel comfortable enough to share their stuff online. And while I think it's great, that's not like a big point for me. It's like, yeah, I'm a guy in this community, right? But I think that if I really wanted to lean into that more, I could. I just personally am like, hey, I would love to see more stuff, but this community is already fantastic enough and supportive. Like, just join the club, essentially, versus being one side or the other. That's just kind of how I look at it.
I also think that it's kind of nice that even just showing up can be a kind of form of activism itself. Like, I'm going to say like a low level one, because for some people showing up as a start is like a really big deal. But I know that previously I received a comment saying like, your videos gave me confidence to, make my own content and such, because I was so self-conscious about my accent. And I'm like, oh, buddy. In terms of accents, yeah, Australian can get pretty twangy, so I can understand why you might have felt a little weird, but I am so glad that you are on the internet sharing your stuff now. I also just appreciated that she also gave us kind of a template so that we can find our own way to use our creativity for our own activism, own thing that we're going to fight for. I haven't actually gone and applied the template to anything yet, but I've got it saved in my photos, which means one day I might look at it. Oh my gosh, the number of screenshots and photos I have in there. I tried to do a declutter the other day. There was over 36,000 files, so like it is very much a future me problem, but that's okay because that was the last session for day 1, and then we got to reconvene at about 7 p.m. or 7:05 if you were late like we were for the wild crop.
Yeah, the crop this year was pretty awesome. I mean, last year I got to host and I've got to run a workshop as well. So it was interesting to see from the other side of the crop, because last year's crop was my first crop. So I didn't know what to expect or how it worked. But this year was pretty cool because of this whole book theme that we had going on. We talked a lot about the books last episode that we got, but the whole purpose of the book swap was to be able to use those for the different sessions that we had going on. And the very first one that we had was creative annotations. My hands are already tingling from the anxiety this session gave me. We'll talk about that in a second, but first let's hear from Amy.
Well, our first speaker for Wild Crop was Amy, and so she decided to take us through book journaling and like annotating books and stuff like that, which I've always been really interested in because I just think it looks so dang cool.
Yeah, it's so fun.
So it was really awesome to see your process and such. My question would be, what made you decide to be a speaker, come out and chat to us this time around?
So I've always wanted to go to Go Wild, like always. And this is my first one. I will be back. That's a threat. And with the theme being books, like it's such a passion of mine. It just like, you know, when the stars align, the stars align.
Yeah, match made in heaven.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was thrilled when Jasmine asked, and yeah, I hope to get to do it a million more times.
Yeah, well, we'd certainly love to have you back because it's like, as said, it's a topic that I'm really personally interested in.
It's a really big topic, and it can be kind of intimidating, but it's like you can make it so personal, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I like all the examples that you gave as well. It's like when we started off drawing roses, and people are like, "Why are we drawing this?" I'm like, guys, look the book she's got there. Like, it makes a lot of sense. But for anybody who wasn't able to come and see your session, what would be like kind of the main takeaway you'd like to leave them with?
I would say like there really are no rules, and it just comes from practicing, and like, you know, reading is supposed to be joyful and supposed to be fun, and so is art. So as long as you can like take the pressure off yourself and maybe get over drawing in a book, it seems to be like a big part of maybe everyone's issue, but it can be like so fulfilling to have this thing in your hands when you're done that you participated in, you know, like you didn't just read it, you were involved in it.
Yeah, I like how it like deepens your experience with the book and such, and I think it's just a really beautiful creative outlet. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
So I can very much appreciate what Amy had to say and what she had to show, but I just cannot, for whatever reason, just think ever about taking a brush marker onto the actual page of my book. Along the edges, in the margins, on a blank page, I cannot. Something about, I can't do it, Jess. I don't know what it is.
I don't know, because I think that this is something that's common for people. Like, a lot of people think the idea of writing in a book is like sacrilege. We shan't be doing this. You shall not pass. Do not collect Go. Do not collect $200. For me, though, I just not that sentimental about books. Like, if I think about it in terms of a book versus a notebook and how much I pay in terms of the difference of those, well, first of all, my books are secondhand, so like I'm not paying all that much for them. But anyway, the idea of writing in that does not bother me as much. The only reason it would bother me is if it was a book that I was intending on keeping and I want to keep it kind of pristine looking. We know I'm a persnickety biscuit, and I'm a persnickety biscuit in certain areas of my life more so than others. When it comes to like taking an old book in particular, like an old secondhand one where the pages are kind of weathered and stuff, I'm like, oh my god, this is the best crafting material. Like, I'm going to rip the shit out of this book and I'm going to stick it all up in my pages and it's going to look so cute and great. For some people, I know the idea of ripping apart a book is literally the least appealing thing, but I'm like, I love the fact that it's got the text and it blends into the background really nicely and it's got the weathered look and just, oh, that is like very appealing to me. For other people, not so much.
You know, I totally feel that. Back when I used to do like mixed media art, I was all about taking old books and ripping out the pages and creating art and doing things with it. And I don't know why like that was okay then, but like I think it was because I was getting books that had no meaning to me. In some cases, I don't even know, they were in different languages, right? They were just literally there for texture and look. But taking a book that I really love, which is what she talked about, and drawing in it over the pages, again, margins, all of that was great. I can say though, and I have to give respect to Amy too, because I thought what she taught about doing that was really great, right? Taking a scene or a moment from a book and then being able to like decorate the front or the back covers or anything like that and kind of create your own version of it, right? Because so often, especially in those novels, you don't have pictures. As much as I would appreciate pictures, you don't have them. So being able to take what is inside of your memory or your imagination from a book and then apply it to a page, I really do appreciate that part of it, because I think that we all interpret different characters differently. Like, I think often back to like when I was reading Harry Potter, for instance, it was before the movies came out. So I had in my mind what I thought each character kind of looked like. And then, you know, you see them up on screen and you're like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense, or it doesn't, right? But being able to like generate a scene or something that's iconic, I really did love that about the session.
I totally get what you mean about like having a certain version of a character imagined in your mind. Pretty much for me, any male love interest in majority of books that I read now looks like Ben Barnes, just because like it fits the vibe most of the time. But in terms of being able to like decorate the book and kind of, it feels like a very kind of intimate relationship with the story. And I think that that's a part about it that I think is really nice. It's like very individualized because what you take out of a book is going to be so different from what somebody else takes out of a book. And the parts that kind of like hit for you are going to hit different for other people and such. So being able to do creativity in and around the book in that way is quite nice. I personally just do that in my reading journal rather than in the book itself, but I also don't read a lot of physical books. I think that for me, in terms of this like book annotation and decoration and such, I would rather do that with other people as kind of like a group creative project. So for instance, like I read the book first, I go through and highlight all the parts that stuck out and were special for me, and then I pass it on to another friend and they do the same thing but maybe in a different color, and they pass it to another friend and do the same thing but in a different color. That's something we've actually been talking about doing, we just haven't gotten around to it yet. Also because a lot of the time we just read the books at the same time as each other, so you don't all want to be like, okay, so we're gonna meet up on Wednesday night and I'm gonna get my highlighter and yours, and we're gonna like, oh, don't turn the page because Monica's a faster reader than the rest of us and Jess is still over here, or like whatever. But I think it'd be fun, I just haven't done it yet.
I think it would be very cool to see if you would do that. I mean, a collective group art project is always fun, especially with like different creative backgrounds, and like how you approach it would be neat. And speaking of the reading journals, that was the second part of the crop, which was interesting because I am not a big reading journal person because I don't really journal that. So Jess, I don't know if you want to talk about this more, because the only part I got out of it was somebody having stickers that had jalapenos on it, depending on how spicy their fairy porn book was.
You need to stop it with that. It is so reductive to the story. Rude. For anybody out there who is a romantasy person, like I am, just know that Mark's opinions are not the opinions of the Planner Pals podcast. But in terms of those stickers, they were really bloody cute, and I want to get myself a set because I love the little jalapenos or like chili peppers or whatever to say the spicy rating. They weren't like the, like 5-star chilies or whatever. It was more like a mild, medium, scorching kind of thing. They're really bloody cute.
Yeah, it was funny. I mean, I think you should annotate and draw pictures of those scenes. I think that would be a fun group project.
I don't think that my artistic skills are up to par. I think I'd rather just go and buy the fan art somewhere else. But let's let Erica and Marielle talk more about their session.
Anybody who didn't get to see your session, what would be the kind of like main takeaway that you would have liked for them to get it if they were here to experience it with us?
If they want to start a reading journal, whether it's with our journal or any other journal, they can do whatever they want. They can, if they want to rip paper, put paper. If they want to do stickers, they can put stickers, they can doodle. It doesn't need to be perfect. It has to be something that they enjoy doing. And everybody has their own way. We saw it on stage. Erica has a different way from me of making her pages, and this is what makes it so beautiful because everybody makes it differently.
I would definitely echo that. I would also say one thing I maybe didn't say on stage, but I really do believe, is I think a lot of us are maybe passive readers, but if you want to engage a little bit in the books that you read, thinking of like a book review and like what spoke to you and what didn't speak to you is a really good way to like parse through all that. Like we've done like book reports in school and stuff like that, but it doesn't have to be so academic. It could be fun. You can use markers, you can use stickers, and it'll still be a really fulfilling experience to do that.
So in terms of like deciding to come and speak to us this evening, what made you decide like, yeah, we're gonna do it?
Well, Jasmine invited me. Shout out Jasmine and the Go Wild team. I have been attending Go Wild for quite a while, since Austin. I don't remember the exact year that was. But Wild has always been amazing to me. I have grown my business so much here. I have made so many friends. And so to me, I was definitely a little nervous when she asked me to do something at the crop, but I got over that pretty quickly. Yeah.
So Erica actually invited me to join her on stage to present our journal that we created together. And I thought, that's a great idea. And I don't think if this was my first Go Wild, I'm not sure I would have been comfortable to do it, but this is my third. And I thought, you know what? This is going to be a great year. It's going to be something more exciting. I'm going to go do something I'm not comfortable with because I've never done this. And this was really fun. This was super.
It was very fun.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, right? Like, if it was your first time, then it's like, oh, wow, that's really confronting kind of thing. Because this is my third year as well.
Yeah.
And we're also speaking tomorrow. Oh, my God. end me. But
You're gonna crush it.
thank you. At least somebody that it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. I keep telling myself that. But kind of like you said, like if it was your first time here, it's just like, oh wow, that feels really daunting. And I think the idea of like being able to do it with someone who you know, like, and trust makes it a little bit more comfortable as well.
I very much respected what they were doing. I think for me, it's just not something that super resonated with me because I don't do that type of journaling, right? So I was in it for the creativity and, you know, some of like how they're doing it. I very much respect the creator, but I'm not going to lie to you, Jess. It was late and it's like an odd time. I was hangry and I was just like, I need food in me. So we need to end day one.
I think also the fact that our session was going to be the next day. So in the back of my mind, it was just like, you got to get to bed. You got to get good sleep. Otherwise, you'll be like a trash panda in the morning and just a frazzled mess being like, eek! Which like me more so than I already was going to be. But I did appreciate the crop sessions. I appreciated the bookish themes. But as someone who does already have a reading journal as well, I didn't necessarily take a lot out of the session, specifically like, you know, what they were talking about in terms of like, you know, this is how you structure your book review or anything. And this is the structure that we use in our planner or whatever else, because I've already got my own planner and I've already got my own system. But I think that like just the general idea of having that relationship with a book, doing your little book reviews, not in the sense of like a typed up book review that you do in school or anything like that, but just giving yourself that opportunity to reflect a little bit more on your reading. That's something that I find really valuable about my reading journal.
Yeah, it's just something, again, I don't fully connect with because I don't do that. Like I read a book because I'm interested. I don't really like reflect on it or think too deeply about it. Maybe I would do more of that with like TV shows, for instance. You know, like Lost was one of my favorite shows ever. There's so much within that space, and you were like thinking about, you know, what's the lore and like what's happening and like building that out. Like I wonder if I would make a Lost notebook now, like following on with the episodes and who is who and who's connected, similar to kind of what I did on like Reddit back in the day when that was there. I can see how people do that with books now. So very much respect it. But now it's night time because Jess and I have a big day tomorrow. So we went to bed and then we woke up and then we were very nervous and excited to kick off day 2.
Which I thought it was good that we started with such a relevant topic for day 2 because Mo from Pipsticks got to talk to us about morning routines. I know mine's terrible, so it was really good to hear her advice about that.
So our first session today was from Mo of Pipsticks, who was telling us all about how to make a morning routine that actually serves you. Yeah. I love an acronym, so I was like, yes, please, thank you. That's exactly what I needed.
I mean, for busy people, it's the only way to keep you in.
I know, check. Right? Yeah. It's like gives like a checklist. I'm like, okay, I did this, I did this, I did this. So I really appreciated that. So obviously not everybody got to be at your presentation. Yes. So what would have been the kind of like one takeaway you would have wanted them to get if they were here?
The one takeaway would be that in order to be your best self and to have a real sense of who you are and to, I think, take care of the people that you love most, you have to put yourself first every day in the morning because that's the only time in the day before everything else takes over and sidelines, all of your best intentions. So you got to start early. Even if you're a night owl, which I am, it's worth waking up for.
No, I think that's really fair, especially because, like, if you're the kind of person like me who rolls over and the first thing you do in the morning is check your phone, you're letting somebody else set the priorities for you. I know. I'm that girl.
We all know that we shouldn't do it, and we all do it, which is why as soon as you wake up, you have to get your butt out of bed quickly.
Yeah, a very fair point.
Yeah.
So, in terms of being part of the Wild community, what is the thing that you love most about that?
I love the diversity of the community. I feel like every time I'm here, I feel like I'm at a Dolly Parton concert in that, everybody from all over the country, all over the world comes together and we just have fun together, and it doesn't matter, what your background is, what your beliefs are, where you come from, where you're going. Everybody just connects over, for us, stickers. And it's just incredible to see that energy and to have the time to really connect with people again and again and again over the course of a few days.
I loved her presentation as well, especially as a parent and understanding, especially when your kids are younger versus older, you're taking care of them so often. And rarely are you always taking care of yourself. I think I ate a whole lot of like kids food, like whatever they didn't eat growing up, especially for breakfast, because that's all I could get in my mouth before I had to go to work. So it was awesome to hear that. My favorite thing that she said during her session, and even when you were talking with her, is the idea of having to take care of yourself before you can take care of others, right? Like if you are not at your best, you can't always help others be at their best. And I think just taking that moment and whatever moment you have so often, and she talked about like, if you can take an hour in your morning, and everyone's like, who has that? Like, no, that's not happening. If it's 20 minutes, like whatever you can kind of get or take, make sure that you do it. And I think that for me was a really big thing that I took away from her session.
I think that what would have been better about that session is not having our session directly after it, because it meant that for the most of it, while I was sitting there, I'm just going, I'm nervous, I'm nervous, I'm nervous, I'm nervous.
No, we were great. And we had to miss the end part of it because we were backstage getting all mic'd up and stuck up with different things in different parts of our shirts and our pants. But aside from that, it was awesome because, we were up next. Productivity journaling was our topic. And I think, everyone was asking, like, are we going to do a separate session or talk on the podcast about it? Well, we're going to do that right now.
So, Mark, now as you've just gotten off the stage, quote, quote, at Go Wild, what was the key takeaway you would have wanted people to get out of your session?
Well, thank you, Jess. It was really fantastic to be on stage and to be able to talk with everyone around topics that luckily not a whole lot of people knew about, which I think was my favorite part of it. For me, the big thing that I want everyone to take away from our session is that there are a lot of different ways to get your ideas out and to organize them, and that there are different tools that you need for different times in planning. So being able to have a toolbox of different ways to approach problem solving, how to take all of your thoughts and put them into a more organized fashion. There are a lot out there. So just understanding and knowing and how they work is really helpful. And that way you can just bring them into your journal whenever you want. How about you, Jess? What did you want people to take away from your session?
What I wanted them to take away versus what they took away might be two completely different things. I just appreciated the number of people who tagged us in pictures after the session being like, oh, these are the notes I took down or whatnot. And the number of people who took down a note about, I'm not the shape I want to be, was great. Effectively, I was talking about, if you're going to make yourself a list of prompts so that you can do a really thorough brain dump, then you can have different life areas like physical health, and you can break that down and talk about nutrition and hydration and exercise so that you can, quote, get in shape. And then I said, well, technically I am a shape. I'm just not the shape I want to be. And the number of people who wrote that down, I'm like, no, that wasn't the point of the session. But also I'm glad you were listening.
No, it was so incredibly well done and timed. I think for me, the big thing about that, and we talked about it a bit last episode, is that I didn't know how to present with you, meaning like, am I at work presentation mode where it's like professional content, delivering, or essentially just being like how we are on the podcast. And it was just one of those things that, like, as soon as we kind of got into it, I was like, oh, this is just like the podcast. And we just did what we always do, which is like crack random jokes and do that. And just so everyone knows, none of that stuff was planned out aside from like the main topics that we talked about on each of the different like methods and different ways to do that. That's just how awesome Jess and I are. We just think of random things to say to each other all the time.
Yeah, and put on random voices and such, because that's like my coping mechanism for being nervous, but also just like how I typically present. Because a lot of people came up to me, they're like, wow, you use a lot of voices. Is that like a natural thing? I'm like, yes, I was scared.
No, you did so good. And for anyone who didn't know about it, we talked about productivity methods, obviously. So we talked about the Ivy Lee method, and I got to tell my favorite story about that. We got to talk about the Eisenhower matrix. We got to talk about time blocking and the Alice Dower method. Like, all of the things that we already use and you can all find on our YouTube channel, we just combined them all into one talk for basically everyone in the audience who, again, didn't really know about a lot of those different methods because they use different planners or different approaches to how they plan. So I was very happy with how happy everyone else was with the content we were able to deliver.
Yeah, no, it was really satisfying just to have it so that then there was not that many people in the room who knew what we were talking about, or at least initially. Hopefully after the fact they knew something, otherwise we didn't present very well, did we? But even if they did know like one or two, they didn't know all of them. So it's just a way to help them build out their productivity toolkit, which was really cool.
And then after us, we had a health and wellness session. And that one was a really good one too, because it was coming from a lot of different perspectives. And we got to talk with some of those presenters and share a little bit more about their takes on mental health and wellness.
We just had the wellness panel, which was led by Alexa here. So I just wanted to check in and ask if there was one thing that people could have gotten out of your session, what would you want it to have been?
The power of using journaling as a tool for your healing and the fact that you actually deserve to heal.
No, 100%. I think that like a lot of people were really impacted by the things that you guys had to share and such, and that's such a good message and take home, because I know a lot of us have a lot of
it's just a hard time with like putting ourselves first and recognizing that like actually you are worth getting the help that you need and such.
I would definitely say support. I think in being able to relate to someone when it comes to journaling, planning, just all things planning related, knowing that there's somebody out there that cares, that values them, support.
So I would say that it's okay to take a break because if you don't, your body will shut down and it's going to do it for you. So it's better to plan it ahead of time and schedule your self-care moments and schedule the time for yourself, because if you don't, it will do it for you. And in most an inconvenient time ever. Trust me, I know. Ask me how I know.
I would want everyone to know that change doesn't happen like magically. Like, it's so easy to see the quotes that it's like, it'll get better. And so you live by that without actually making any positive variables come into the equation. So without those variables being added, then it won't get better. And like manifesting and just believing in better doesn't work until you start making changes.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, change doesn't work unless you do. And,
right.
Yeah, which is kind of like sometimes a conflict of those ideas of like, oh, you grow through what you go through, but it's like it doesn't kind of like, doesn't give you your autonomy, I guess.
Right. Yeah, like a general quote doesn't really help anyone.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that that's something that is like, can be so powerful if you remember it and you get to like, take your power back in that way.
I think my favorite was getting to speak to Amanda Rach Lee. It was a real shame you didn't capture that one.
Well,
I'm kidding. It's fine. It was a little unfortunate. Mark just double hit the record button at the start and then hit it at the end to cut off the recording, and it started recording the floor. So I got some really good shots of Amanda's leg and somebody's shoes.
It was one of those things. I did so well on every single other one. Why one of the most important people in the general, like, our unisphere of like bullet journaling and creative journaling, that's the one that I mess up of all the entire ones. I'm so mad at myself about it.
It's okay. Next year you won't miss anybody and we'll be fine, and they'll keep inviting us back.
Yeah, I won't miss anything because next year Jess won't let me touch any of the equipment. That's why I won't mess up next year.
This is why I don't work with people usually.
Yeah, I know I can trust myself. I can't trust him.
It's also the kind of thing that it's like, if I stuff something up, I can just be annoyed at myself and it's fine. This is the same reason that I don't let Vogel do things around the house. He's like, oh, I can plug the hole in the wall. I can patch that up. I'm like, no. I'm going to get like a professional to do it so that then if something goes wrong, I'm annoyed at somebody who will leave the house. I don't have to pay them maybe, rather than getting annoyed at him and still having to live with him. He knows I'm talking about him. He's standing right here.
I think he should defend himself. Get him over here to defend himself.
Hello.
Yeah.
I can do some things, but the reason I'm incompetent is because Jess doesn't let me do anything. Hi, Mark.
Right there. That's right. You stand up for yourself, sir. You don't let her tell you what you can. And, go put a hole in the wall right now and you fill that sucker back.
No more holes in my wall. Oh my god. I came back with 3 new holes in my walls.
What?
They cut holes in my wall. You were here.
That. Yeah, no.
This is why you're not allowed to do things. Go back to your office.
That's just the one she knows about.
No, dear.
He's got a bunch of little hamster holes all over the house that he's just like, I'm going to leave it right here, and Jess is never going to know.
What a menace.
Now, one of the big things I got out of the actual health and wellness session, though, what was really resonating with me is actually from Amanda, as she was talking about the different comments and things that you get online, and especially for us when you are putting things out there on the internet. People will respond back to you. I call them the keyboard warriors, right? That have no issue whatsoever letting you know what you did right or wrong from their perspective. The thing is that while most people will say like, now I let that roll off my back, I'll tell you from my perspective, that is a defense mechanism. Like, I will forever remember the rudest comment anyone had ever left on any of my things. And let me go ahead and just say that for you right now, just so you have an example. This also was a comment that was left on my YouTube channel 4 or 5 years ago. It was, I would rather chew marbles and poop glass than create the spread that you just did inside of your bullet journal. But I remember reading that and just being like, was that a waste of time? Like one person said that to me and I was like, was that a waste of time? Disregard the other, 30 or 40 comments that said that it was fantastic. But like that stuff does affect people. And especially when you are doing this full-time or part-time or spending your time doing anything, it is so important to just know like what you say and do does affect other people, regardless of how happy they are on camera. Like I think about that comment often enough that I just brought it up again.
I think it's also a tricky thing, is like, because I do definitely have comments like that, like the person who said like you need to do something about your skin stat, and I'm like, no, sorry, that's just my face. I'm a warm lady with a rosy complexion, not a drunk. If you were wondering, if you might be wondering, but no. But I also find that even the well-meaning comments sometimes aren't great. Like recently I put out a video that was about my health journal, which is always going to be an interesting kind of topic, and people will have a lot of opinions and such. And even people who they genuinely mean well and they want to help you out, sometimes if you're not workshopping your comment in a way that makes it more positive, it comes off as like you're wrong, I'm right, you must do this, otherwise you will fail at your health goals. It's like, nope, don't need that. Like you said, it probably is just a defense mechanism to kind of ignore them nowadays. My new thing that I've been telling myself is, wow, what an interesting use of your free will. Or, wow, what an interesting use of your creativity. Because I had somebody comment saying, oh, it looks like you've been doing too many fork to face lifts. And it took me like a good 5 minutes to figure out that they were calling me fat. I'm like, you could have just said fat. Like, that would have been fine. That would have just saved us both a lot of heartache.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry I'm apologizing for that person. That's the kind of stuff that is just like, why? It's so unnecessary and toxic. We don't need that in the community.
It's always intended as an insult, though. And I'm just like, congratulations, you have eyes. Like, yes, I am fat, but that doesn't mean that I'm not creative or can't be pretty or don't have great ideas to share, which is kind of the point of my channel. So it's like, wow, you picked up on something that wasn't the point of the video. Congratulations.
Yeah, well, I think the truth of that is that they weren't there for the content. They somehow stumbled across it. They decided that they were in a hateful mood that day and they wanted to spread that. And that is just unnecessary, right? But stuff that happens, and obviously it does affect us in different ways. And we can say, that doesn't bother me, or you're going to put it in different spots. I mean, the other thing too that I got out of this session was from Taylor, and she talked about paying attention to your body, and because your body will be telling you things. And I think both from a physical standpoint, but also from like a mental health standpoint too. That's something I really got out of that was, that weird feeling that you have that's not like a physical pain necessarily, or like something's wrong, but like just something you sense is kind of off. It's just another way, like you said, it's like your body is trying to tell you something, but you have to kind of pay attention to it, right? Be in tune with it to really understand what that is. And I think that was a really powerful message that I got from the panel too.
It's a hard thing to teach, I feel, which is probably why a lot of us don't know how to do it. That idea of listening to your body, paying attention to when things are, quote, wrong, because sometimes they don't necessarily present as wrong, it's just presenting as different. And if you don't have a label that kind of goes with that difference, then you don't necessarily know what's going on for you. I know that, trackers and such, energy, mood trackers, gratitude log, all of these kind of things can help you kind of put together the pieces and paint that picture for yourself, but it isn't a skill that is readily taught to us, I feel.
No, and we talk so often about it being performative, where we feel like we have to use those just to have them in my journal versus actually using the data that you are pulling from those type of trackers to make change, right? Either positive or negative. So I think that was a really important thing for me to pay more attention to. Just, as I think about how I am moving forward with my own time and energy and like how I'm approaching things, it's also good to know that you're not alone. And I think that was something else too that I really liked is, listening to other people. So often, we all watch Amanda Rachel Lee's videos. Maybe you don't, but she is a big YouTube presence. And so you think, oh, she's perfect. She's untouchable. Like everything she does is perfection. She never has to worry. She's never stressed out. And then you just realize like, yeah, but behind that, there's so much stuff going on. And there's a lot of experiences and things that, she's dealt with specifically. And for me, as someone that's like in that same space, I always take a lot out of those sessions for that, because I can very much relate. Maybe not having millions of followers to the level she does or my own products, but it's definitely something that just adds levels on top of it. Like you're like, oh, she has her own notebook. You're like, do you know how much pressure and things that have to be done for that to be successful, because she is handling that all on her own, and just like taking that second to realize that. Or, you know, so often she talks about it too, like, you know, God forbid she doesn't post her monthly setup on the first of the month or the day before the first of the month. She doesn't like mid-month. And I'm thinking, how terrible to have people like yelling at you, being like, where is this video? I need it. And you're just like, whoa, like I didn't have time to do that just yet. Like that's a lot of pressure.
I also really like the point that she made about when you work for yourself. You know, as someone who works for themselves, it's very easy to see like more output equals more outcome. Whereas if you're in a salaried kind of job, it's like if I do my hours, kind of regardless of how much I get done, like within reason, we don't want to be put on a pip. As long as you're doing the tasks that have been assigned to you, at the end of the day, you wrap up your time, you're done, you get your paycheck kind of a thing. Whereas working for yourself, there aren't necessarily those readily established boundaries to hold you to just working between set hours. It's like, oh, well, I could work till 10. I could work till 2 a.m. No one's here to stop me. Like several of my journal setup videos, I don't know how I managed to pull them off considering I was filming at like 4 a.m. to get those done. Like because there was nobody there to stop me, I just did it. And especially when it's work you love, and especially when it's stuff that you just enjoy, because then it doesn't feel as much like work, but it isn't restful in the way that genuine rest activities are, which can lead to burnout. So it was nice to hear her touch on that point and kind of hear that that is something she has also suffered with, because otherwise it's like, oh, everybody's out here like running their own small businesses and such, and they're doing all these great things and whatever, and I'm just a burnt out sad mess. It's like, haha, no, we're all burnt out sad messes. That doesn't sound like a good thing to be happy about, but it's like, it's nice to know that other people understand the difficulty.
Yeah, it most certainly is. Well, let's go ahead and dovetail into the next session, which was actually about endless creativity. We talked a lot episode about editing, right? I sat at their table. I got all their gear. I'm very excited about all of the stationery that I got from them. And they had a great session as well, just talking about bringing their products into the United States and kind of outside of their space. It's funny, when we talked about it, we got some messages where like, I live in Germany and like everyone has editing products like in their drawers. They're essentially the Sharpie, just not in the US. Right. And I thought it was really cool to hear them talk about their passion behind stationery and bringing those things to the US specifically. They have such an amazing line of products. I've been playing with the metallic markers. I actually have some blackout sticky notes that I was like, I'll never use these. I just don't think about pulling out the pens. And I've been using the metallic markers so much that now I'm just like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and use the metallic markers today to write a little Post-it note.
I didn't actually get an opportunity to use any of their markers. That feels like a complete lie. I totally had the opportunity, I just didn't take it, because I know that we did get some editing markers at our table to play around with and to have a look at. Not for keeps, just for being able to do the session that followed. But in terms of the collection, would you say that the metallic ones are your favorite, or?
I mean, I will say that the metallic ones work really well. It's an easy grab for me because I've had them out and I've been using them, but their glitter brush pens were nice. I got to use them at the table and I was really impressed with what that looked like there. The fine liners are really nice too. They have a longer kind of nib to them. So when I was using those, for me personally, I felt like I had a lot of space to write and kind of can reach with those without having to be like right on top of my paper. So excited to experiment more and explore more with them. But yeah, it's just an easy grab at this point now. I'm like, yeah, this looks cool. It's nice and opaque. It's doing its job.
But of course, we did get some of those at the table to play around with, in particular the textile markers, I believe, because in our next session, we were drawing on canvas bags. Well, some of us were. I decided to bippity-boppity back the heck out of that one because I'm like, nope, I'm going to stuff it up. The perfectionist mentality came out, but it was really good to see you get in there and draw some stuff down.
Yeah, it was awesome. They were doing a little bit of lettering along with using the textile markers. It was really cool to see people at the table experiment and explore, and I created mine, and I'm excited to use it.
No, I think that the most impressive part about that session, though, was Lisa just getting in and showing her process, because she was just like so speedy with it, and I know she left a lot of people very impressed.
I feel like you left everybody just being like, how did you do that so quickly?
And that's the difficult thing as someone who has practiced this for so long. I think the first time I had a calligraphy pen in my hand was in middle school, and I've not put them down since. And so to me, doing it all the time makes it go fast. So I tried to break it down into steps, but inevitably the nerves also kick in and we're going a little faster than we planned.
No, but for sure, I also loved your point that you made though about the idea that you don't need a lot of practice to get like worlds better, and that's the thing. It's like even just by like doing it a little bit on and off and stuff, the like rate of progress that you make is actually quite impressive.
Yes, and I've gotten that feedback a lot because people think if they get a book, they have to do like 3 pages of it to count as practice. Like, no, that's not what I do. Like, the edges of my book, they might have an alphabet. I might want to play with a single letter to see how I can change what that capital looks like. You don't have to follow the rules. You make your own rules.
Yeah, for sure. For people who didn't get to see your session today, what would have been like the one takeaway that you would have wanted them to have?
Don't give up. Everyone has this bit of creativity that they swear that they don't, but you do, and it doesn't look like my art. It doesn't look like your art. There's a little bit in you. If you give yourself the chance to play, it's going to come out.
That's a really good point as well, because I feel like a lot of people in our community are like, oh, you're so creative, I'm not creative. But it's like, your creativity doesn't have to look like mine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It would be so boring if it did.
Exactly. I'm like, then it's not really creative. Then it's just like a print a press.
We all look like a stamp. And while we love stamps, we get to all use them differently.
Exactly.
My favorite part about Lisa was actually that she talked about being a part of the community and this being her first time up on stage and how excited she was to see her friends out in the audience like cheering her on. I can very much relate to that because there's nothing better than like doing something that's a little nerve-wracking, but knowing that you have the backing of your friends and your community to do that. So I was so impressed by how she did things too. The fact that she could write and draw and talk all at the same time, she's a much better person than I am. I am unable to do those things.
Yeah, that skill set is not a skill set that is innate for me. I'm practicing, I'm getting there, but no, actually like being able to draw things out and just keep talking about other stuff, especially when you're writing words. I'm like, if I am trying to write words and talk about something at the same time, they better be the same words, otherwise, woof. In my reading journal recently, I was sitting there talking to a friend about, I don't even know what. I was trying to write down that I watched the movie Wicked, and I ended up writing Wicked Wings, which I'm like, yay chicken, but like, no, that is not what I intended to write down, and this is why you don't talk and write at the same time.
Yeah, it's definitely special. So we got to wrap up the day with our keynote speaker, which I felt kind of bad about it because I didn't know a whole lot about John Green. I feel like everybody else knew everything about him. My wife knew about it, but I was like, I don't know that I've necessarily heard of him before. But then as he was talking and sharing about his novels and how some of them become movies, I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. But I think for me, one of my favorite parts is that you got to interview him, which I think was just perfection.
So we just had our keynote speaker, John Green, talk to us, and I just wanted to say that I'm so close to the end of your book. I was trying to finish it.
Thank you so much for reading it.
But the best part is that like my partner, he did a biochemistry degree, and now he's in patent examining or like patents.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about the Johnson & Johnson stuff, I'm just like, that's what he comes home and bitches about all the time.
Yeah, you know all about that.
Exactly. I'm like, I've heard this story before. No, it's been really good, and I'm really enjoying it.
Thank you.
So for anybody who didn't get to come and see your presentation, what would have been the number one takeaway you would have wanted them to get out of it?
I think the biggest takeaway was how important it is to find communities like this one and connect with the other people in online spaces, in real life spaces, in hybrid online real life spaces, because that is where what Kurt Vonnegut called the terrible disease of loneliness can actually be cured.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I liked your points about the idea of like your community, like the Nerd Fighters and stuff, and how we had some of them here in the crowd as well.
Yeah, it was great to see some Nerd Fighters here. It doesn't surprise me that there's some crossover between this community and Nerdfighteria.
Yeah, no, I think that there's also some in like our like Planner Pals kind of community as well. And when they heard that you were going to be here, they're like, oh my God, I need to get tickets to Go Wild, but I've like never been before and such. So it was really cool to hear you kind of like give them a shout out while you were here. In terms of like building community in your life, what's kind of like the number one value that you see in that for yourself?
I try to find people who love the same things that I love, whether that's, in my life, caring a lot about tuberculosis and the people who are fighting TB, or caring about the stupid fourth-tier soccer team I support. When you find people whose love is oriented in the same direction as yours, that's when you found your people.
Yeah, I very much valued your point about the fact that it's like we don't all have to be on the same page, but it's like you're looking for like-spirited people, not like-minded people in that kind of way.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of putting it.
It was really funny trying to prepare for that interview because, I mean, just preparing for Go Wild in general, I decided to read his book literally because we were going to Go Wild and he was going to present. Like in preparation for the Washington, D.C. one, I tried to make sure to watch Hamilton because we had Renee Elise Goldsberry who was going to be there. But then I didn't really know how to prepare for Martha Stewart. I'm like, do I go buy a home cookbook or something? She's done like everything. I'm like, I know Martha Stewart. I don't really feel like I needed to prepare to see her other than like emotionally and spiritually. But in terms of doing research, not so much. In terms of John Green, though, I had heard of him before he was announced. So having him announced was quite exciting, but I haven't actually read any of his books. So I was like, okay, we must read a book from John Green before we get there, and it just so happened that Everything is Tuberculosis was coming out. And so reading through that, there were just so many points in there that I'm like, ooh, I could talk with him about this. Ooh, I could talk with him about that. And of course, it's just a very short interview. You don't want to talk his ear off. He had other places to be with other people to meet and such. So it was still nice to highlight the fact that his book had been really good. I did really enjoy it in the end. I'm not really a history book kind of reader, but I think that he did such a good job of actually making it relevant. I mean, the title is Everything is Tuberculosis, so you hope that it's relevant, but just tying all of the pieces together and seeing where TB has kind of affected human history and also the people that it's affected and such. One part that I didn't really get to talk with him about because, again, short interview, other places to be, other people to see, was the idea of it being the kind of like poet's disease and how it was kind of thought of as this very kind of beautiful thing because of the way it would impact the human body. And it would give you the rosy complexion and it would give you the kind of like, I don't know, snatched look kind of a thing because you just don't eat kind of a thing, which, you know, not eating and thus losing weight because of it, not a great thing. But it really brought into question the idea of when people say like, oh, wow, you look so good, you're looking great. You know, how have things been going for you? And it's literally because you've been sick, so you haven't been eating, so you've like lost a bunch of weight. And it's like, cool, I look great because I was genuinely ill. And that is definitely something that has happened to me before. So it was an interesting point to find in the book.
It was one of those topics where I thought it was just the name of the book, but the content was going to be different. That it was like, no, this is literally the history of tuberculosis. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. But what I was glad to get from it more than anything was about community. And we talked about that a whole lot. And I think the biggest thing that I really got from him was the idea of the hybrid approach to different types of communities. And again, relating directly to Go Wild and being on Instagram and YouTube, right, and kind of one side of the camera versus not seeing anybody else, is that we have these opportunities to come together and to be a hybrid community, and the importance of being able to do that and like what that means for individuals, what that means for a community specifically. That's really what I got out of it. So I was like, okay, I don't know a lot about this topic specifically. I don't know if I would necessarily read that book. I'm sure I'd be more happy reading a different one of his, but it was still really cool just to hear him talk and just, you know, he is a real writer. He's an author. He is an artist of words, and just hearing him talk about his approach and how he did that was really neat. And again, that's what I took away from it more than anything, but that's what I love about all of these different sessions, Jess, is that we can all listen to the same person and take something totally different away from it.
No, I do think that the emphasis on community and the importance of it, and as he kind of mentioned, that idea of like curing the disease of loneliness and such. And because I think that a lot of the time we don't think about loneliness as a disease, but like given the way that loneliness impacts the body, you can certainly think of it as a disease, like in terms of the way that it actually impacts your mental health and such, but then how that kind of relates to stress and then how that will impact your physical health and such. You know, with health in general just being all related, it's very, you know, noodle soup. Everything's connected. It does make sense in that sense, but it's not necessarily something that we would immediately think of as like, oh yes, disease. Especially not like infectious disease.
Depression as a whole, right, is stuff that people will suffer through and kind of be through. And that's just about loneliness. I know it's a lot more than that, but like it can put you into a depressive state depending who you're around. If you are around other people or even connected, I feel a lot of that feeds through kind of how you interact with people and what that does to others and how they react and how you do. So there's a lot of interconnectivity for sure. And I think that's just something you don't usually think about. And I think like from a topic perspective, it's like, wait a second, what is this about? And then you really start to dive into it more. And again, hearing him speak about the topics and like his approaches were really super interesting. I got a lot out of that.
I think that the most controversial point that he touched on was how he likes to annotate books by tearing the pages at the sections that he wants to come back to. And like, sure, I don't have a lot of sentimentality for books. I don't really mind how people treat them, but that feels like a very interesting system and one that I shall not be using.
The way that the entire room clutched their pearls when he said that and like audibly gasped, and he was like, whoa, yeah, this is definitely not the room for that comment. Sorry.
I think it's one of those things. You could probably like train yourself to be okay with it, but I don't want to. Like, if it's a crafting book, if it's a book that I have designated for being scrap paper, sure. But if it's one that I have designated as being like a reference book and I want to come back to it and such, I would rather take a highlighter to the page than I would just rip the page.
Well, having John Green speak and having him talk and answer questions was great. And, you know, we saved the best for last, though, I think, personally, because I don't think that you could have had a more successful Go Wild event without the hostess with the mostest, the one, the only, Miss Amy Tangerine.
Amy Tangerine was our MC, kind of like host for the entire affair this year, which was very exciting. So what made you say yes to being our, like, you know, hostess with the mostest?
Honestly, I love being a part of the community, and I thought if Go Wild is asking me to do something I've never done before, they trust me enough to take on the task. And as nervous as I was to say yes, once I made that commitment, I just knew that I had their support, and it's a community I already love, so what could go wrong?
Yeah. Wrong. I mean, that's the thing. You brought the energy. It was all very much appreciated. The way you kind of like introduced everybody and got everybody hyped. Like, I know, like, going onto stage, I was so nervous, and hearing you kind of hype us up, I'm like, okay, Amy believes in me.
It's so funny. You don't realize how nervous people are because people can put on a good front, and honestly, I'm not even trying to put other people at ease. I want the community to have the best experience possible, right? It's really about the people connecting. And you all have such great energy and connection between you. It's so fun and really inspiring to see people get giddy over all that you're showing them. And you had some really cool terms that I wrote down.
I'm glad, I like to bring the lexicon to the people. Like, in terms of the community of Go Wild and such, what would be like your kind of like favorite thing about these people?
Truly, just the fact that they show up and say yes, right? They take their seat at the table. It takes a lot to do that, and I think that nobody has it easy, and it's not easy to get here, clearly, right? I really appreciate that once a year, this happens in a place that might be convenient, might not be convenient for you, but people say yes to it. They show up, and they're present, and they're here, and there's nothing like the way people connect in person. I know online is so wonderful and we can have great access to podcasts and social media, but in person, you almost can't describe it. And so you have to experience it for yourself. And another thing is, I know that people say Go Wild is once a year, but I really believe every experience is once in a lifetime because we will never have this Go Wild Indie again. And if you missed it, I'm so glad you all are covering it for people who couldn't make it in person, but I strongly encourage people. There was somebody here who flew for the first time. She's an adult and she had never been on a plane. And you know what she said to herself? She made sure she wasn't gonna miss Go Wild. She wanted to try it. First timer, newbie, and the first time on the plane and her first time singing karaoke. And guess what she chose? Itsy Bitsy Spider.
I love it. Oh my gosh. I think that's the thing. It's like a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know if I want to go. Like, what if I don't know anyone? Like, it's going to be awkward. But it's like you kind of said, there is such an energy here, and being like in the room where it happens, there's such like a power that comes with that.
Absolutely. And everybody's unique. So even if you are a little nervous, it's okay to say that too. And guess what? Chances are the people around you at your table who you meet, you never know what's going to connect you. And it's always usually something really interesting and good, or fountain pens, or funny inks, or sayings that you have. There's something that ties us together, and it's beyond a love of paper. It's really about a love of people.
I know she said it wasn't her intention to like, you know, hype people up before they got on stage or whatnot, but it very much had that effect on me personally. It was nice to hear her kind of like cheer you on to get you amped up to go on stage because, as previously mentioned, somebody was a nervous wreck. So being able to have somebody kind of already cheering for you before you stepped out was quite nice.
She always brings that energy. Anytime I'm around her, she's this little ball of happiness and sunlight that you see. You know, she's always saying hello. I mean, when I was at that DC show where I just snuck in there, I saw her and like she knew who I was. And I was like, how do you know who I am? Like, I know who you are, Amy Tangerine. You do not know me. And she's always been very supportive and very kind and very nice, which I can always appreciate. But yeah, having a little cheerleader back there, and her outfits were amazing. Every single day she came out with a different level of gear on, which was great. And then having the ability to talk to her at the end and kind of reflect on that. I mean, what you don't realize if you've never had to host and do that, there's so much that happens behind the scenes, memorizing the people that you're going to introduce and making sure you don't say their names wrong and what are their topics and who they are. I mean, even for myself, she, you know, talked about us when she introduced us and was like, you know him for his fountain pens. And I was like, do people know me that I love fountain pens? I guess they do because I do talk about them a lot. But it was just interesting to like hear someone else say that about me, which was really cool. So it was just fantastic to hear her talk. And she's been such a big part of the creative like planning community as well. And it just, she was a great person to have host. I don't know anybody else that could do it.
No, very much that. It was a great opportunity for us to get to speak to the speakers and also to the volunteers, and just the whole behind the scenes thing was so great. Like, I know that that's a very simple word to summarize it, but it felt really excellent. I was kind of nervous going into it. It's like, oh gosh, we're going to interrupting people and they're not going to want to speak to us, but everybody was so accommodating. Everybody was so willing to give us their time and like let us share their voice and highlight them. But question for you, Planner Pal, which of the sessions sounds like it would have been the most interesting to you? Which one do you think you would have gotten the most out of? Or if you were there, which one did you get the most out of? Let us know either in the comments, or you can email us at plannerpalspodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up on Instagram at plannerpalspodcast.
Well, that is a wrap on our Go Wild coverage for 2025. Last episode we talked about it being New Orleans, so we'll see if we're going. Jess and I already are setting up our OnlyFeet pages. We're becoming men and women of the night. We'll do everything we can to be there to be able to bring you more great event coverage. Or someone could always sponsor us, Jess, and we won't have to do any of those things. Bring Planner Pals podcast back to Go Wild next year. Let's just put that energy out into the universe and see who answers the call.
Yeah, it would be really, really awesome to not have to spend another $6,000, but also, like, you know, I'm going to be there anyway. In terms of next time's topic, though, we're going to be looking at trying to store all the supplies that we got from Go Wild and also the stuff that was already in our stash, because you know it's a lot. Stationary storage is something that I know a lot of us struggle with, so we're going to be sharing our techniques for storing our hoards. Until then, though, thanks for watching.